Hi there, Malcolm here with my 24th Booktube video, and at this point I've reached my first big landmark with 10 subscribers. So a big thank you to all of you few people out there. So we've passed the midway point of April, so it's an ideal time to do the wrap-up video for March. Slacking. Back in February I had the very optimistic target of 17 books on my TBR pile. I actually managed 10. So here we go. Right, to start off is my book of the month, which is book 2 of the Rage War series, Alien Invasion. I read the first book last month and was very eager to see where the story went. And being the book of the month, I did do an individual book review on this, and I'll leave a link to that down below. Next up was a book I picked up from the library, Star Wars Agents of the Empire 2 Hard Targets. A few months ago I read book 1 of this series and I really enjoyed it, and when I spotted book 2 of this James Bond style spy space adventure series, of course I had to pick it up. It turned out I'd actually already read it. But don't let the fact that I'd completely forgotten about having already read it let put you off. This is a very enjoyable story, well told, and with enough intrigue and excitement to keep the pages turning. And I would definitely say buy it. After that I read The Maze Runner by James Dashner. When we went to Florida in February, I took the entire Maze Runner series with the view of reading the whole lot on the plane, and just about started Kill Order. And so for the next few months I'll be trying to finish one of these books right after finishing the book of the month. I had read this one before, but figured if I'm reading them all I might as well include it in the lot. Most of the story I had remembered, but conveniently forgotten a lot of the basic points so that it was all afresh to me again. The basic plot follows a young lad waking up with amnesia in a giant maze with a bunch of other people who also have amnesia, and they got to work out just what is going on and how do you get out of the maze. I'd originally picked this up because I found the synopsis on the back intriguing, and it was only later I learned they were doing a film of it, which I've still not seen. I'd say it's an enjoyable enough adventure story, quite infuriating in that you're not given many answers because no one has any. So I'm looking forward to next month when I read The Scorched Trials to see if any answers are forthcoming. I would say this is worth reading, and a lot better than Kill Order, the prequel. Following on for this is another graphic novel from the library, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Ghostbusters. Now I must confess I was never really a fan of the Turtles as I was growing up. I'm not sure if it was because it was my younger brother's thing, but there we are. And we picked this one up because we really enjoyed the new Ghostbusters volume that we picked up previously, and we're keen to try another story from that series. Despite having the Turtles in it, I was actually very surprised about how much I enjoyed this story, where due to some trans-dimensional teleportation mishap, our two teams of heroes find themselves in the same universe fighting a really big baddie. Witty, exciting, with high personal stakes. This is definitely worth buying. Another graphic novel from the library, Star Wars Rebel Heist. Now this one I hadn't read before, and this gives a unique perspective of our heroes through the eyes of other rebel initiates as they come to grips with transforming the legend into the flesh and blood before them, managing their expectations and getting a fuller picture on how they operate. I'll say this was a little bit slow getting going as we did progress through a series of points of view, but I would say the ending had a good payoff to it. I'm not sure if it's quite worth buying, but it is definitely worth reading. And then from another Star Wars book from the library, the only Old Republic novel I do not own, Deceived by Paul S. Kemp. This is where the Sith, despite a truce being drawn up, do the inevitable backstabbing thing, and we follow a freshly masterless Padawan as she travels to Coruscant with a smuggler with the view of avenging her master's death. The smuggling, meanwhile, has been blackmailed into delivering a drug supply to Coruscant and is targeted by a rival gang's bounty hunter / assassin. I would say this one again took a little while to get into, but once the momentum got going, this was a very exciting story with some very interesting development between characters, particularly between the smuggler and the apprentice. Right, back to our actual physical books that we actually physically own. I finished reading Skullduggery Pleasant 4 Dark Days to My Wife, but this is by Derek Landy, where Valkyrie goes on a quest to rescue Skullduggery from the dimension of the Faceless Ones. Needless to say, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that goes on in here, but I'm not going to spoil any of that for you. Still full of wit, sass and adventure, these books have a marvellous collection of characters, and this one is no exception, and it's definitely worth buying. Oh look, a graphic novel I actually own. Star Wars Clone Wars 9 Endgame, the final volume in the Clone Wars series. This volume features 3 stories. The first is Hidden Enemy, which follows Quinlan Vos on the planet Kashyyyk as Order 66 is executed. Somehow he is able to survive, and his mourning of Ayla Secura is very poignant. This sees the return of his untrustworthy acquaintance the Deveronian Vili, who's always worth it for the laugh. This one is quite suspenseful as a badly wounded Quinlan Vos struggles against the elements and the clone troopers who are trying to kill him. Next up is Into the Unknown. This one introduces the Jedi Das Genir and kicks off the Dark Times arc of comics. This story follows a number of Jedi after Order 66 and how they survive. Some go into hiding, some join the forces they were fighting against previously, and others just don't survive. Poignant melancholy, but also a great start to another good series of comics. And finally, Purge, a story I've already covered when I reviewed the graphic novel Purge, in which the story also features. Basically, a bunch of Jedi try and trap Darth Vader. It don't go too well. And I would say this is booktastic. More Star Wars, with I, Jedi by Michael A. Stackpole. This is the first book on my actual reading pile, and is nearly 600 pages long. This follows X-Wing pilot Corran Horn as he tries to discover his Jedi roots in a bid to rescue his missing wife Mirax. Featuring most of the crew from Michael A. Stackpole's X-Wing series, this has a very different flavour as it is told from the first person, Corran's. For the most part I enjoyed this book, however I did find the substantial chunk based at the Jedi Temple a little bit slow. It basically retells a lot of what happens in the Jedi Academy trilogy while on Yavin 4, featuring Exar Kun and all that, but from Corran Horn's perspective. It was a lot of retreading covered ground. Okay, I don't know which book was written first, but it did seem a bit superfluous. Other than that, I enjoyed watching the Star Wars universe through Corran's eyes, and I would say this book is worth buying. And finally, I finished reading The Stainless Steel Rat Saves the World by Harry Harrison. The Stainless Steel Rat is a master criminal in a futuristic universe who, in a stainless steel environment, has to become a stainless steel rat to survive. Unfortunately, he is captured by a government-sanctioned group of mastermind criminals and then set to work catching other criminals. But that won't stop him robbing the occasional bank from time to time. In this adventure, he is fighting across time against an entity intent on making the whole of reality his own. Finding himself on Earth's past and far future, our two time travellers battle it out in the light-hearted and whimsical way that these stories are written. And if I didn't already own it, I would buy it. And there we are. That was my 10 books I read in March, neatly wrapped up in a video mid-April. I found it very rewarding that I enjoyed every single one of them. Have you read any of those books? If so, let me know what you thought of them. Or if you're thinking about reading any of them, then feel free to ask me some questions on them in the comment section down below. But as always, if you have nothing nice to say, please keep it to yourself. Thank you. Until next time, see you later.